Hey guys, Rob here at 3D Printscape. So today we're going to be talking about BTT Pi 2. This is a relatively new Pi board that they've had. They've had the 1.2 out for a while, but this is really in competition with the Raspberry Pi 4. I would say it's not quite up to spec with the new 5 that just came out. But with where the market has been, it's been somewhat difficult to get a hold of the actual Raspberry Pi boards, or if you are able to, you're paying a lot more than you should be. So that's really why BTT came up with this. They did make some changes that are specific to 3D printing as well, but you can use it for a lot of the things you would use a Raspberry Pi for, assuming you didn't want to use it for your 3D printers. But this is geared more towards 3D printing. So in this video, we're going to do a quick unboxing of this, talk about a couple things on the board, show it next to the Pi 4 as a comparison, go over a couple of the details, and jump over to the computer. I'm going to show you how to get it set up with either using a Debian build or just straight Klipper. I talk about the Debian build, but I'm actually going through the full Klipper install in the video. So if you have any questions about what I'm covering here or would like to see any other videos, go ahead and leave a comment below or join us on Discord. All right, so let's go ahead and do an unboxing of this. In here, we've got a Wi-Fi antenna that you can use if you're mounting it to a case or something, or just keep it near it. The standard BTT duck, though I will say it's about a 50-50 chance if I'm getting one or not. Some of the ones I've been buying didn't come with the duck, though other people tell me that they bought the same thing and it did, so you may or may not get a duck. A heatsink, a couple stickers, and a manual here, and then the actual board itself. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the board. The first thing I wanted to do here is show this side by side next to a Pi 4. There are a lot of similarities. The fronts are similar, so if you're looking at cases, and the actual mounting brackets line up, but the BTT is bigger, so we've got a couple centimeters off to the back. So if you're trying to reuse an existing case, or if you're printing a case, make sure that it allows for that extra space. So just keep that in mind. But one of the big things that they are doing here that the Raspberry Pi didn't is you've got a 12 or 24 volt input right here that you can use to power this directly from your printer. So if you wanted to have it tied in line with the printer, you can do that, which I think is pretty cool versus having to do some sort of split or adapter on that one. I do wish it came with a power supply, but none of them really do. I've got a power supply that I'm going to use for this demo, but if you aren't planning to power it from the board, you will have to buy a separate power supply, and then you will have to buy a SD card as well if you don't have any laying around. For this video, I was using a 8 gig SD card. It's going to be more than enough for most needs. But if you are running to run games or something on there, you could potentially need to run larger depending upon how much storage those need. You can run it with or without the heatsink, though I would recommend running it with the heatsink. So the heatsink is pretty much just going to sit across here. It's basically going over these two chips, just like so. So let's go ahead and put that on really quick. We're just peeling off the blue. Try not to get your fingerprints or anything on the sticky part, and then you just want to align it so it covers both of the chips, and just like that, it's good to go. It's one larger heatsink versus having a couple small ones like they do on the Pi, but I think overall I like the larger heatsink better. It's going to distribute the heat a little bit better than the two small ones, though I guess these are proven to work, though a lot of people still run fans with these because they can overheat depending upon what you're doing with them. So without going into the specs, I don't think that that's too important here. If you are looking for specific details, when we get to the GitHub page, I'll show you where the user manual is. They got a full manual online, but you have all of your pins here. The different colors are labeled for the different voltages, and every pin and everything is detailed online, explaining exactly what it is. And then your antenna will connect as well. So you'll just see it like next to the heatsink, there's a little circle pin. You would just connect that in. All right, so I will say that was actually surprisingly difficult to get into place, just due to the heatsink and everything around it. So if you don't already have the heatsink on there, it's a little bit easier to do it. I also wouldn't stick this to the case unless you know you're going to be keeping it in that case permanently, just because it's not going to come off easy. So just leaving it in there is good enough in most cases. You probably don't even need it, it's just going to give better reception. And then once you have your build done, you'll just go ahead and take the SD card that has your OS and Klipper install, just going to put it in the back, and then we'll power it on. Again, I'm going to show you how to do the Klipper install and get it onto the SD card here in a second. So yeah, that's basically everything you need. If you are printing a case, like I said, make sure that you have the extra space for the back part here. It's probably a couple centimeters longer than the standard Pi board is. Alright guys, so now that we've gone over some of the basics on the board, I wanted to show you the GitHub page. Here there are two things you're going to want to be able to reference. The first one being the user manual. So this is the English one. It has a lot of great detail on basically everything about the board, such as all of the features, if you scroll down, so the mounting holes and all of that, but everything that's on the board, including a complete breakdown of all of the pins here. So if you're doing anything beyond just the basics, you can use this for reference. There's just a lot of great information in here in general. And then the other one is the releases. So if you go over to releases, you'll see that they have the 1.0.5 is the most recent one, and that's from June 19th of this year. And here are the two actual files that you would want. So this first one is just a Debian install if you want to install Linux without putting Klipper on there, which is an option if you wanted to do more with it than just use it for your printer. But for this purposes, we're going to install Klipper. So we'll just go ahead and click download on this, and it will go ahead and download that file for us. And then we need to be able to put that file on the SD card or flash it to an SD card. So with that, we're going to use Rufus. Basically just go to the page here, go down to, you see the download section, and then go ahead and download that and run through the install. Make sure you don't click on all these other buttons. They're basically just ads. Just go down to the actual download section here and grab the one. So you want the standard install for 64-bit Windows. So I already have this installed, but basically when you download the file, just double click on it, it'll launch and prompt you for a couple acceptances, and then it will install. It's pretty straightforward, just default settings for everything. And then once that is done, just go ahead and launch that. Once the install is done, it should launch the program. So you'll be able to just run through here. So you want to make sure you have your SD card inserted. I'm using an 8 gig card, but really you don't need that much space. You should be able to get away with a 4, I think, just fine, or maybe even less, but you won't have much room for actual images and stuff on there. But I would go with 8 gig or higher. All right, then you want to select your image. So this is going to be a disk or ISO image, and then select, and then you're going to select the one that you just downloaded and hit open. Then once that's selected, you can just go ahead and hit start down here. All the rest of the settings should be the same. And it's just giving you a warning saying it's going to erase everything. All right, once that's done, which took a little over 7 minutes, about 7.5 minutes, you're going to want to open up the SD card. There's a config file that we have to update with the Wi-Fi information. All right, now that it finished flashing the firmware to the SD card, you should see it show up with a boot drive here. There's actually multiple partitions on the SD. One of them is just the small boot drive, and the other one actually has the OS. If you don't see this, you might have to remove the SD card and put it back in for it to detect. But you want to go into that, go down to our system config file, and then open that with a text editor, which I'm using Notepad++ here. And then you want to update your Wi-Fi SSID and password. So like when you're searching for your Wi-Fi, the SSID is going to be the name that shows up, and then your password is the password you have set up. So that's my SSID. Then I'm going to put the password in off video. But once that's done, you go ahead and save it and then put it into your BTT Pi 2 and then go ahead and power it on. Alright guys, now that we put the SD card in the BTT Pi 2, you would be able to power it on, and when you go to the IP address, you'll be able to see the standard error screen because Klipper's not actually set up. So at this point, you'd go through the standard Klipper setup for a new printer. If you haven't done that before, I do have videos covering that. I don't want to add it to this video because it'd make it quite long. It's also worth noting that the IP address, if you don't have a screen, so if you're using the Pi headless, I had to go to my router to actually get the IP address of it. It showed up as BTT CB2 board, and I was able to get the IP from my router. That's how I got to this. But at this point, Klipper is fully set up and functional on the device. Like I said, if you're looking to run something besides Klipper on here, go with the Debian instance. That'll just give you a clean Linux instance that you can use to kind of build whatever you need to on it. This device is pretty powerful. Like I said, I think it's a little bit more powerful than the actual Raspberry Pi 4, but not quite as powerful as the 5. And at the price point, it gives you quite a bit, especially if you're looking to use it for 3D printing. You can connect mini printers to this without an issue with the processor that's in it. Now, I know I didn't go over like each specific thing on the board that much. I didn't think it made sense. Most of it kind of stands out. If there are specific questions you have, just let me know. I was just trying to save a little bit of time on the video and pointed you towards the user manual, which I showed earlier. That goes over what everything on the board is, and from there you'd be able to figure out how to use it. But like I said, if you have a specific instance you're trying to do or work with, or you're trying to do something specific, just let me know. I can try to help out. Alright guys, so that covers how to get started with the BTT Pi 2 board. Like I said, it's very similar to the Raspberry Pi. You just have to make sure that you're using their builds. They provide a Debian build if you're just looking for straight Linux distro that you can work with, or they provide a full Klipper install as well, which is what we used in this guide. If you have any questions about what I covered or would like to see any other videos, go and leave a comment below or join us on Discord. I also got a CB2 board that I'm going to be doing a video on coming up pretty soon as well. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Thanks.